Hello and welcome to this video on posture. We're going to be having a look at what is posture and how does it affect you. So if you've ever suffered with back pain, knee pain, hip pain or any other type of joint pain, then there's a very good chance that your posture has become compromised and it no longer looks or functions how it was designed to look or function. So do you recognise these dots? Well, if we put in the head and the spine, you'll see that the load-bearing joints, which are the shoulders, the hips, the knees and the ankles. And they are designed to be level with one another from left to right. So the shoulders are level, the hips are level, and the knees and the ankles. And vertically, they're designed to be stacked up on top of each other. So shoulders, hips, knees and ankles are aligned. And if we draw straight lines down through the verticals and across through the horizontals, what we get are right angles emerging, or a grid. And right angles are the key to understanding your body's design. They give it strength and durability, and we call this the right angle rule of function. In the side view it's exactly the same. The shoulders, the hips, the knees and the ankles are aligned, and importantly also the head, rather than being forward of the plumb line, is back in its neutral position, which means that the ear is directly aligned with the load bearing joints. It sits right on top of the load bearing joints, the shoulders, the hips, the knees and the ankles. Now if we take a look at the spine, we can see that in its natural state, the spine is an elongated S shape. So it has a curve, an inward curve in the lower back, an outward curve in the upper back, and then another inward curve in the neck. And the spine sits on top of the pelvis. Now the pelvis, in terms of posture, is the heart of it all. It's been nicknamed the second brain because of its importance in the body. The pelvis can deviate in a number of ways. It can elevate on one side, it can rotate forward, and it can tilt. So the pelvis can go into what we call an anterior tilt, which is forwards, or a posterior tilt, which is backwards. And you can guarantee that when the pelvis becomes misaligned, the rest of the body will deviate to compensate for that movement, because the body is a unit. So nothing happens in isolation, and everything has to respond to everything else. So when the pelvis does deviate, and let's say in the side view if it tilts forward, then because the spine sits directly on top of the pelvis, the spine will lose its natural S-curve and become more like a C shape, or an inverted J, or completely flat like an I. Common deviations we see when posture becomes compromised are elevation. So here we can see that the left shoulder is lower than the right shoulder, and the left side of the pelvis is higher than the right side. So we've lost the right angles, and one side the angles have become greater than 90 degrees, and the other side they've become less than 90 degrees. So we know that there's a muscular imbalance, and some muscles are in a shortened position and other muscles are in an elongated position. Now here we've got an anterior tilt of the pelvis. This is where the pelvis tilts forward, and the opposite of course is where the pelvis tilts backwards. So remember that the spine is designed to be an elongated S, but as the pelvis tilts forward, then the spine loses its natural S curve and becomes what we talked about earlier, a C shape, an inverted J or an I. So quite often what we see is the lower back becomes flat and the upper back becomes excessively rounded, what we call thoracic flexion. That takes the head forward of the plumb line, and it causes the shoulders to round forward. So if you've ever had any neck pain, for example, there's a good chance that your head is forward of the plumb line, and the muscles of the upper back and the neck are working hard just to keep it forward, looking forward. Now if we put some flesh onto the load bearing joints, we can see a little bit more. So in this image we see that on the hands we can only see the thumb and the side of the index finger. We can't see the backs of the hands at all, because the shoulders are rolled back in their neutral position, and the spine still has its neutral S curve, and the pelvis is neutral. So as we say, when the pelvis, let's say it tilts forward for example, that will cause the upper back to round excessively, which will cause the shoulders to round forward, it will cause the head to drop forward, and we'll see the backs of the hands showing. Now the knees are very important as well. We call those the window to the pelvis, because they tell us an awful lot about what's going on in your body. Now they're designed to face forward because the knee's a hinge joint that only bends backwards and forwards. It's not designed to rotate. But quite often, as the body becomes misaligned, the knees turn outwards to the sides or inwards, and sometimes they do one of each, so one knee will turn outwards and one knee will turn inwards, and there we know that there's a definite disparity in the pelvis, which means that the left and the right hip are no longer doing the same thing which they are designed to do. And the feet, like the knees, are also designed to face forwards. So as you walk, the action of walking should be that your heel strikes the ground, you roll onto the balls of the feet, and then push off with the toes. But quite often the feet start turning out to the sides, or they turn inwards, which can manifest itself from anything from bunions to hard skin to having to get, say, one shoe resoled while the other one's still fine, because one side of the body bears weight more than the other side of the body. Now the key thing to understand in all of this is that the body is a unit and nothing happens in isolation. And quite often, let's say you've got knee pain, for example, quite often other therapies will focus on the site of the pain and just work on the knee and maybe a little bit above and a little bit below. But the question we need to ask, like small children always ask, is the question why? Why is there pain in the knee? Now let's say that there's pain in the left knee. It's quite possible that the right side of the pelvis is elevated, which is causing the left side of the body to bear more weight. As you walk around on a day-to-day basis taking the average of 10,000 steps a day, over time the left side of the body is going to scream with pain because it can no longer do more than its fair share of the work. So if we focus on the left knee, then we're ignoring the right hip, which in this case, this example, is the problem. So to stop the pain in the left knee, we need to get the right hip to function according to how it was designed to function. We need to get it to do the same thing as the left hip, and it's the same throughout the body. The shoulders have a direct impact on the hips, the knees and the ankles, and vice versa. The knees have a direct impact on the shoulders, the hips and the ankles. All of the load bearing joints work as a team, and if there's a problem in just one of those joints, then what's going to happen is the other 7 have to take up the slack and do the work. So the key to this is to take a step back, have a look at the body as the unit that it is, and ask the question why. Thanks for listening and watching.